Yeah, let's continue. In this session, we are going to continue Master Snowflake Data Engineering with SQL, AWS, and Snowpark team. So, in this session, let's start discussing what is Snowflake, and we are going to discuss Snowflake Cloud Architecture, and then we are going to discuss prerequisites for Snowflake team. Okay, let's start discussing it. Yeah, let's start understanding what is Snowflake. Yeah, Snowflake is a cloud data warehousing platform. Snowflake is a cloud data warehousing platform. So first, let's understand data warehouse. Data warehouse is a central repository where we store history of data. So data warehousing is a central repository. We collect data from different sources, and we store all these sources data into one place called data warehouse. We store the data into central repository. What is the purpose we store in data warehouse is finally we want to generate a reports or dashboards, or we want to predict the future. For that purpose, we go with data warehousing. So we collect data from different sources and we store the data into one central repository called data warehouse. Here, Snowflake is a cloud data warehouse platform. What is the advantage compared to traditional data warehousing with cloud-based data warehousing is it supports unlimited storage. There is no limit in storage. You can store any size of data because here it uses cloud file system for the data. There is no limit for cloud storage. So, so Snowflake is saying you can store any size of data. And next advantage here is Snowflake separates storage separately and compute resources separately. Let's take existing data warehouse architecture or traditional data warehousing architecture. We take master missions and we take worker missions. These worker missions are responsible for storing the data and processing the data. Worker missions are responsible for storing the data and processing the data. These are workers. These are masters. Masters takes the request and assigns the request to these workers team. These workers are responsible for storing the data and processing the request. So both storage and processing units present in same mission. But coming to Snowflake architecture, Snowflake separates storage separately, processing separately. This processing we call in Snowflake is virtual warehouse. Virtual warehouse. In Snowflake, processing unit is a generic terminology, and in Snowflake terminology, we call it as virtual warehouse. So advantage here is here it supports unlimited storage. There is no limit. Based on your data storage, it will scale automatically. It will scale automatically. There is no limit for your storage. Next advantage of this processing or virtual warehouse is we can create different sizes of virtual warehouse. If we say traditional architecture, we can create workers, right? There is a limitation in workers size. It depends upon the data warehouse to database. Some data warehouses supports 256, some data warehouses supports 512. It is depends upon data warehouse to data warehouse. There is a limitation in workers in a cluster. But coming to Snowflake, there is no limitation. You can create multiple warehouses with different sizes. Let's say virtual warehouse 1, I want to create with 2, then second warehouse 4, next warehouse 8, 16. Like that, you can create multiple virtual warehouses with different sizes. What is the advantage here? Let's say here I have only 1 GB data. To use large cluster here, whether your data size is 1 GB or 1 TB, you create a cluster with specified number of missions. Let's say I create a cluster with 256 missions, but you have only 1 GB data. There is no use of creating cluster with 256 missions, right? Yes or no? One or two missions are more than enough to store the data, process the data. But you have invested lot of money for 256 missions of your data warehousing cluster. Coming to Snowflake, you can create a virtual warehouse with different sizes. Snowflake people will not charge for creating virtual warehouses with different sizes. Say, I used this virtual warehouse to process this data. To process this data, let's say it is taken less than or equal to 5 seconds. 5 seconds. How many resources are utilized? Two resources. So Snowflake people calculate two resources for 5 seconds. That's it. Even though you created multiple warehouses with different sizes, you did not use those virtual warehouses processing. If you use any resource, any warehouse for your data processing, then they will calculate the pricing. Let's say I have another data with 1 TB. To process this 1 TB data, I used X warehouse with 32 resources. Assume 32 resources. I used this virtual warehouse to process this data. Then it is taken, let's say, less than or equal to 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Assume it taken 8 seconds to process this 1 TB data with a size of 32 missions, 32 resources. So Snowflake people will calculate only for 32 resources with 8 seconds. We have a separate topic in our course called storage pricing, how Snowflake people calculates storage pricing, and how Snowflake people calculates virtual warehouse pricing. We are going to discuss very in depth with different use cases so that you will get a clear understanding. We can create virtual warehouse with different sizes, different virtual warehouses we can create, but Snowflake people will calculate only for the virtual warehouse we used for processing. Other virtual warehouses, they will not calculate pricing, even though you created. When that warehouse is utilized, then only Snowflake people will charge. Clear writing, virtual warehouse. Next one, here, there is no limitation in storage and you can create multiple virtual warehouses with different sizes. You can use right virtual warehouse for your data processing. And one more advantage is Snowflake supports multiple cloud platforms. Snowflake is a cloud data warehouse for storage and processing. It uses different clouds. Currently, Snowflake is supporting 3 clouds only. So this part is clear. Tip. What is Snowflake? Any query here?